guys. So today I'm doing a books and tea video, and I've lost track of which one I'm on. So I have some chai tea. Smells really good. Just it's hot chai tea with some coconut milk. So I'm getting in the fall spirit. So today and all the days before, it's been very hot. It's been the hundreds, and today it's in the 90s, and tomorrow it's gonna snow. So it's like fall is happening tonight, I guess. So that's why it's like a nice spicy warm drink is what I'm in the mood for right now. And the book I am going to be talking about is A Place to Stand by Jimmy Santiago Baca. And so he's a poet, and this is his memoir, and it follows his life, which was just very hard life. It starts with his childhood with an alcoholic father, and his and also his family, and his mother, and he ends up orphaned, and then is fed straight into prison. So as soon as the orphanage, he couldn't stay at the orphanage anymore, they just put him in a jail. So he experiences a lot of different hardships, and goes to jail multiple times, and the majority of the book, or maybe not the majority, but he does spend a lot of years, quite a few years, in a maximum security prison, and it greatly changes him. He experiences a lot of hardships, as I've said, directly and indirectly. Just a lot of unfortunate things happen to him, and it's a very difficult book to read, but it's also like uplifting in the way that, like, just to know like how much someone can endure, you know. It's very hopeful because he does come out of all of it as a poet and able to describe these experiences. And it's also super important because it talks about the issues in the prison system. And it's not like, it's not factual, it's not like cold facts, it's not preachy either. It's literally his experience, and it exposes what is going on to so many people and how certain situations really feed you down a certain road. So, and it's an easy read in the sense that it's not, that the vocabulary is very accessible. The pages are like that. Yeah, some of it was very hard to get through, just like very graphic descriptions of such awful events, but I don't know, it does leave you with a new perspective of the world, and like, not to be like, oh, you know, people have it worse than me, because that like is not helpful, but like to be like, wow, someone got through this, I can get through this too, you know, like however similar your situation is, even if it's very different, you can find the similarities and be like, oh, I can get through this too. And I can learn this too, because he learns a lot from like the different people he meets. The writing style evolves as he does throughout the book. He he describes people in a way that changes, so like the way he'll refer to the women in his life kind of evolves based on the people he's around, and it reflects where he is in his life. So like he'll call them like chicks versus women or whatever. So it's very interesting, and you kind of feel like you're there, like you can really empathize with him. There's a lot of violence in the prison, and he really shows like what the culture is like in there, and how hard it is to survive, and how you really have to not show any fear. So, but yeah, it's definitely one of those things where if any topic could bother you, like violence or drugs or anything like that, like this is not the right book, because it definitely goes into those things quite a lot. So, and then also he kind of talks about like discovering his culture and his heritage, and like Aztec art and poetry, and discovering language. He actually is illiterate till he's 18, I think, or 21, so he's functionally illiterate. And in prison, he learns to read, and not only learns to read, but learns to become a poet, learns to write poetry as well. That's so good. I added too much sweetener, but other than that, it's really good. I read this book in 2 days, and it's definitely not meant to be read in 2 days. I was kind of trying to crank through it, but like I would recommend really like sipping this book, if that makes sense, really savoring it. Sorry if you can hear my bunny in the background. Yeah, the book really like plays with your emotions as well, because there's times where you're like, oh my god, why did you do that? And it's even more so like, why did you do that, or why didn't you do that? Because it's like, you know it's actually happening, or actually happened. So like overall, I would say it's an easy read in the like skill sense, but it's very difficult in the topic sense. If you're sensitive to anything, any sort of like trigger, it's like definitely not a book for that, for you. And this book also has some of his poems that he wrote, some other poems as well that he received through pen pals. I'm actually sort of inspired to read some of his poetry. I haven't been reading, like I haven't read that much poetry, even though I like to write it. It's like much easier to write than prose, I would say. Like, in my opinion, like clumsy poetry is beautiful prose. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I can write a really bad poem, but it's a good essay because of the language, if that makes sense. So I kind of, to get other people's perspective, I guess other people's recipes on how to create, that's why I like this book. Like books about artists becoming artists, poets, or writers becoming that way, actors, that sort of thing, where it's like, usually they come from a place of like hardship, suffering, being stifled, and then you see how they grow into becoming an artist. And this is one of those books, so it's definitely it's difficult, but I would totally recommend it to everyone who thinks they can read it. And yeah, I'd say it's very important to read. I would go so far as to say that it should be read. So yeah, get yourself a cup of tea, something to settle into fall with, something warm, and a good book, possibly this one, and have a nice night.